Last week, the UFC announced Alexander Volkanovski against Max Holloway 3 to headline UFC 272. And within 24 hours of the announcement, Max Holloway pulled out of the fight. And ever since he's pulled out, we've had a number of fighters volunteer their services for a shot at the champ. And one of those fighters happens to be Triple C, Henry Cejudo. And he's the guy that I want to see fight Volkanovski come March the 5th. I want to see him get the opportunity to become champ. And I'll explain to you guys why, but before I do that, my name's Rahul J Chan. This is the Battle Camp. Thank you very much for joining me. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm nearly there. I need your help. Don't be stingy. All right, now look, before I talk about Cejudo, I feel like I need to address the elephant in the room, right? Because as I said, one evening last week, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, the UFC made this double announcement. Alexander Volkanovski against Holloway 3 for the featherweight title, and Peter Yan against Aljamain Sterling 2 for the bantamweight title. And I thought to myself, that's a tasty night of fights. That is March the 5th. That's one to mark in the calendar because I'm going to be watching that live. I'll stay out for that one. It seems like a good night of fights. And like I said earlier, within 24 hours, Max Holloway pulls out of the fight. But between the announcement and Max Holloway pulling out, Ariel Helwani tweeted, and this is what he said: "My New Year's resolution for fighters is for your fights to be announced when your actually signed contract agreed to all the terms for said fight." That was quite sassy of Ariel Helwani, the way he tweeted that out. And just when Max Holloway, pulled out of the fight, he said something like, "I told you," and done the nose emoji. So the UFC were trying to pull the old trick of announcing a fight before it's been confirmed, pull that old chestnut, and it happened to backfire. And this might be the quickest pullout I've ever seen in a fight. I've never seen the UFC announce a fight and then a fighter pull out within 24 hours. So Max Holloway's pullout game is extremely strong. Now, before I get into Henry Cejudo, like I said, a number of fighters have volunteered their services, and I haven't seen whether this has been done publicly. I've seen Korean Zombie publicly state that he's ready to take the fight. But aside from him, other names or potential challengers could be Josh Emmett and also Yair Rodriguez, right? Now, according to Ariel Helwani, who's usually on the button, it looks as though the UFC are likely to pick the Korean Zombie to be the replacement. And it seems as though that's the fight that Volkanovski actually wants, right? So the whole premise of this video, the outcome that I'm going to talk about is highly unlikely. But, you know, it's my opinion and I'm here to share it. The reason why I want to see Henry Cejudo get this shot, it's quite simple. As soon as the announcement came out that Max Holloway isn't in fact fighting Volkanovski on March the 5th, Henry Cejudo started chirping. He went on social media and started campaigning for this fight. And my initial reaction was, "Oh, shut up, Henry. You're not getting this fight. I don't want to see you fight Volkanovski. You don't deserve it." That's what I started telling myself. And then I sat back in this fit of rage and I thought to myself, you know what? I'd rather see... I sat there thinking to myself, just as I am now, I couldn't think of anyone. I couldn't think of another featherweight that I'd rather see fight Volkanovski. Like, don't get me wrong, Korean Zombie, exciting, fun fighter. Yair Rodriguez, exciting, fun fighter. Emmett, exciting, powerful, fun fighter. But none of those guys have been on a consistent run where you can say this guy deserves a shot. He is a top contender. He's put on a good string of victories, and he should be the guy that fights Volkanovski. There's no obvious choice, in my opinion. Like, Korean Zombie has lost... Who did he lose recently to? He lost recently to Ortega. Yair Rodriguez lost recently to Max Holloway. Ortega has lost recently to Volkanovski. Like, nobody has beaten one of Holloway or Ortega. out of the current guys in the featherweight division, right? So it makes them staking a claim for a title shot less compelling, you know? And then I started kind of reviewing my reasons why Henry Cejudo shouldn't have a shot against Volkanovski. And it's like, well, you retired. You were the champion of 2 weight classes, the bantamweight division and the flyweight division, and you walked away. You walked away and you retired. And if you come back and get this shot, who's to say you won't do that again? Who's to say you won't face Volkanovski, beat Volkanovski, and then decide you're going to retire again? And that's going to hold the division up. And if that holds the division up, the UFC are going to have to rejig everything and blah, blah, blah. And then, as I was mounting this internal argument in my brain as to why Henry Cejudo shouldn't be fighting, something clicked. The reasons I'm coming up with are the UFC's reasons for not wanting this fight to go on. These are things that would annoy the UFC, but do they annoy me? No. No. It didn't annoy me when GSP came back and fought Michael Bisping, won the middleweight belt and decided to walk away again. That didn't really annoy me. It didn't really bother me, to be honest. In fact, I quite enjoyed it. Not the fact that he walked away, but the fact we got to see GSP fight again. And I've been quite critical of Henry Cejudo. Just recently, when I made my video about Eagle FC, and I spoke about the fact that Henry Cejudo is going to be the commentator for the broadcast team, I've been critical of him, right? I'm not a great fan of Henry Cejudo, but one thing that I always, and not as a fighter, I'm a fan of him as a fighter, but as the character he plays, I'm not a great fan of it, right? But one thing that I've always said on this channel is what excites me about a fight is the chemistry between the two fighters in terms of how they interact with each other prior to the fight, and the element of unknown of when they step into the octagon. And I feel as though Henry Cejudo is able to, for me personally, provide the most compelling argument to say he's the guy that I want to see fight Volkanovski next. Now, I try and avoid kind of MMA shows when I have a subject in mind that I want to discuss, right? Because I don't want my own opinion to get polluted by someone else's thoughts. But to be fair, yesterday I listened to the first half of Morning Combat, and this was the first thing that they discussed. And it was quite funny because Brian Campbell was basically saying he'd like to see he'd like to see Henry Cejudo get this shot against Volkanovski. And his reasoning was similar to mine. Obviously, I explained it a lot better. Obviously, I'm joking because they don't really have as much time to sit here and ramble on the way I do. But Luke Thomas, his reasoning for not wanting Cejudo to get the shot is what I was a little bit surprised about, right? Because what he was saying is, what gives you the impression that Henry Cejudo has the chance to beat Volkanovski? And I was thinking, why is that? Why is that part of the conversation? Because nothing gave me the impression that Juliana Pena had anything in her locker that would enable her to beat Amanda Nunes. In fact, I said that in my preview video. Like, that's not how fights are made, right? It's either you earn a title shot by beating all of the right people, or you are a commercially viable enough entity to slot into the position of a challenger. The same thing happened to Henry Cejudo when, like I said, he was the bantamweight champion, and he was due to face Jose Aldo. And at that time, people were like, well, why is Jose Aldo getting a shot against Cejudo? Like, what's he done to deserve this? And then off the back of that, Aldo pulls out and Dominic Cruz jumps in. Like, none of those guys were a deserving challenger for the title at that point in their careers, but they got those shots because those guys had the name value to put into that position, right? And the fact that currently we're in a position now where it's a replacement, where you have a little bit more leeway, a license to be creative because it's a replacement, and the standard kind of protocol doesn't need to be followed in terms of identifying who the deserving challenger is. This is a perfect opportunity to slot Henry Cejudo in. Now, I said at the beginning of the video, it's not going to be him. The UFC won't pick him. And I'll explain to you guys why. Because he effectively walked away from 2 divisions, leaving them without champions. And he tried to hold the UFC to ransom. He tried to say, pay me what I deserve. So, and I'll come back and fight, right? And where he fucked up majorly is when the UFC didn't want to pay him what he felt he deserved. And I'm not saying that it's wrong for him to do that. When I say he fucked up, this is where he fucked up. Ever since he's walked away, he ain't shut up. All he ever does is tweet Dana White. Every time someone of note fights within the featherweight division, the bantamweight division, or the flyweight division and the featherweight division, like 3 different divisions, whenever there's a fight of note, so whether it's like a #1 contender fight or an actual title fight, Henry Cejudo's Twitter fingers are out and he's tweeting and he's talking shit about the guys that are fighting, and he's tweeting at Dana White, oh, give me this guy, I'll beat him easily, and this, that and the other. Like, the desperation that he's showing publicly, it's not a good look, right? So you try to out-leverage the UFC by walking away as a champion of 2 divisions. You walked away, you stepped away and said, look, I'll fight, I'll continue fighting, but you just got to pay me what I think I'm owed. And the UFC said, fine, we'll just take those belts off you and we'll give them to someone else. When you're ready to fight, give us a shout. And Henry Cejudo was just stood there, and rather than saying, fine, yeah, I don't need you, the same way I talk about Nate Diaz and how Nate Diaz isn't scared to walk away from the table, Henry Cejudo was acting all like, yeah, man, you know, I'm just going to go away, you know, start my family, and, you know, I've worked too hard, man, I've worked too hard, I need to retire. And then every time there's a fight, he just can't help it. He just can't help it. Like, if you're going to retire, if you're going to play this game, you got to stick to your guns. And he hasn't. And that's been detrimental to him, because an opportunity like this, if he came out and via his manager and communicated to the UFC, if he'd been quiet for 1.5 years or whatever it's been since he's retired, and he turned around now at this point and said, look, I'm happy to jump in. If you guys want me to, I'm happy to jump in. It feels as though he's missing it. It feels as though he really wants to fight, but he's just given all the power and leverage back to the UFC by being so desperate in his retirement. And I don't feel as though the UFC will want to risk it with him. Will they actually say, you know what, is there a possibility that he does a GSP, fights once and fucks off? Who knows? But out of all of the current challengers or options, he's the one that I want to see the most for the reasons I've just stated. And I don't know if I read this out earlier on in this video, because if I'm honest with you, I've done a few takes of this because I keep messing my words up and effing up. I don't know why I said effing up, because I've already swore about 8 times in this video. But when Henry Cejudo tweeted this on January the 9th, I was like, sign me up, because he said, hey, Dana White, give me a shot at Alex. I would never cancel. I'm Mexican, and we don't believe in pulling out of anything. And that had me howling. I really found that funny. And it's very seldom that I find anything Henry Cejudo says funny. Anyway, those are my thoughts about Henry Cejudo, why I want to see him fight against Volkanovski, and why I don't believe he's going to get the shot, because he shot himself in his foot. That's why he's already shot himself in his foot. And the UFC won't be playing ball. The only way he gets this fight is if he comes back and fights under the exact same terms in his existing contract, because I believe he's probably still got a couple of fights left in his existing deal, right? And he's walked away with fights outstanding on his deal, so he can't fight anywhere else. He's painted himself in a corner on that front, and he's holding out for this money that the UFC don't believe he's worth. And actually, the UFC can be quite petty, and they can hold a grudge, so they're probably saying, no, Even if we think you could, you've earned this money by your commercial, commercial viability, we're still not going to give it to you because of the way you left. And they can do that. They can do that. They earn enough money to do things on principle. And when I say principle, I mean their principle, what they hold as a set of principles when it comes to how they deal with their fighters. But anyway, I've gone on for a long time here. So what I want you guys to do is comment below. Respond to anything that I've said in this video, firstly. Any observations about the observations that I've made. Make counter observations. Also, tell me who you want to see fight Volkanovski, because that would be interesting. Because I feel like I don't know whether I'm alone on this Cejudo front, or whether whether we're part of the majority. So I'd like to know. So comment below who you want to see fight Volkanovski, and just general comments and chit chat. I enjoy going back and forth with you guys. Please like this video. Please share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, if you're still here, just subscribe now, man. Like, you've been sat here for 15 minutes. And if you're not subscribed, why you being a hater, B? Why you being a hater? And final point, final thing that I want to say, actually, that I haven't said in this video, is the UFC announced a fight between Volkanovski and Max Holloway, and Max Holloway pulls out within 24 hours. Why do they need to stick to that date? Why is it so imperative that on that date we have a fight for the featherweight title? That doesn't make sense to me. Now, obviously, sorry for that, Bep. Obviously, if Volkanovski has said, no, I want to fight on that date. If Holloway can't make it, find me another opponent. I'm ready to go. I need to fight on March the 5th. If the number one contender, or who you deem the number one contender isn't ready, that's not my problem. The last time I fought was whenever it was against Ortega, and I'm ready to go. I want to fight in the first quarter of 2022. Fine, fair play. I don't mind. That doesn't bother me. But if Volkanovski is indifferent, and if Holloway can potentially come back in, say, April, then what's the hurry? What's the rush? It's another one. Another one of them situations where we're creating title fights to fill a card, like when Cyril Gane fought Derek Lewis for the interim heavyweight title? Is that what we're doing here? But yeah, I just find all of this quite intriguing and weird at the same time. But those are my thoughts. I've shared them with you. Now it's time for you to share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. And again, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'll catch you guys on Thursday, because I drop videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you very much for watching.